Hello students, we are here again to discuss physiology, life processes of class 10th. The next topic we are going to discuss is respiration, which is a very interesting topic, and I welcome you all. Now what is respiration? Respiration, when we take food, what happens to that food? That food is broken down. The bonds are broken down to release energy. That is in layman's sense what is respiration. But otherwise, respiration is oxidation of glucose to release energy. Now as we go ahead, we will be discussing about respiration in plants, respiration in animals, something called aerobic respiration, which will be in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic respiration, which will be in the absence of oxygen. So various aspects will be covering. So let's get going. Now different types of respiratory systems are there in animals. We'll be having respiration through lungs, through gills, through skin. And in plants also we'll be talking about respiration through stomata, through lenticels, through root surface or root hair cells, by diffusion. We'll be talking about difference between breathing and respiration. The phenomena of release of energy by oxidation of organic molecules for cellular use or conversion of chemical bond energy into ATP is respiration. Here glucose is broken in the presence of oxygen in an aerobic respiration to yield carbon dioxide plus water, plus around 38 to 40 ATP are released. And as you know, ATP is universal currency of the cell. I want to talk, I want to think, I want to digest, I want to breathe, I want to walk. I need ATP in the form of energy. So the basic aim of respiration is that the chemical bond which is stored in organic molecules, that bond energy is converted into another chemical energy, that is ATP. Now what is difference between breathing and respiration? Breathing is a physical process in which we take in oxygen, rich air, and give out carbon dioxide, rich air. That is breathing. So it's a physical process, where respiration is a chemical process. Now I take air inside my lungs, that is inhalation. I breathe air out of my lungs, that is exhalation, that is breathing. Where respiration occurs inside the cells, where glucose is oxidized to release energy. So breathing is a mechanism in which oxygen from the air and releases carbon dioxide is called breathing. Respiration includes breathing as well as oxidation of food to release energy. It is a physical process. It is a biochemical process. The process of breathing involves lungs of the organism, where respiration involves cells, mitochondria and other structures. Now this is some basic process of respiration. Intake of oxygen from environment, oxidation of food, removal of carbon dioxide, and release of energy. Energy is stored in the form of ATP. This ATP is breaking into ADP plus inorganic phosphorus, and here energy is released for various purposes. Now this is how they are showing that we can have two types of respiration. aerobic in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic in the absence of oxygen. So these are the details we'll be discussing. Significance of respiration. Every organism needs energy for life processes, for biochemical processes. Without energy, life will not be there. So whether it is small bacteria which is anaerobic or aerobic, to multicellular living beings like human beings, we all need to respire, we all need oxygen. Now, this releases energy which is required for various processes. Now if we calculate the efficiency of respiration, it comes out to 40 to 42%. Where is 60% energy gone? That energy is lost or dissipated in the form of heat. इसलिए जब तक हम जिंदा हैं, we are warm. The moment we die, we are dead and cold. So this energy also helps in maintaining body temperature. A number of intermediates are formed in respiratory cycles. So that will be discussed, but the basic aim is to produce ATP. Now, external breathing. The process of taking in air rich in oxygen and releasing air rich in carbon dioxide is breathing. Cellular or internal respiration, the process in which glucose is oxidized to release energy, we call it as internal or cellular respiration or tissue respiration. Aerobic respiration, I already said that aerobic respiration will require oxygen. Now, whether it is aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration, glucose first is converted into pyruvic acid. This pyruvic acid can enter citric acid cycle, which is also known as TCA, tricarboxylic acid cycle, or Krebs cycle. This goes on inside the mitochondria, and as a result, NADH, FADH2 are produced, and ATP are also synthesized. Through electron transport chain, this is known as oxidative phosphorylation. We'll discuss in details as we go ahead. This is a simple flow chart that how glucose is first broken into two molecules of pyruvate molecules. Then pyruvate can enter the mitochondria by making acetyl coenzyme A into citric acid, where it will form NADH and FADH2, and ATP also will be released. And this is an electron transport chain that is given here, in which when the electrons will jump from one electron transport chain to another, ATP will be produced. And from this electron transport chain, FADH2 has the potential to produce 2 ATP. NADH has the potential to produce 3 ATP. So for that, the energy calculations we'll be doing later on. But as we'll go on, the citric acid cycle will give us 12 ATP. Glycolysis. This is a common pathway for both aerobic as well as anaerobic respiration. In this, the glucose molecule is broken into two molecules of pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid is a keto acid. It has 3 carbon. So glucose breaks into two molecules of pyruvic acid. Then this pyruvic acid enters into the Krebs cycle through acetyl coenzyme A, and there ATP, NADH and FADH are formed through electron transport chain. So electron transport system is responsible for oxidative phosphorylation, where the terminal oxidation step will be requiring oxygen, so that NADH and FADH can give us ATP. Respiration takes place without oxygen is anaerobic. It takes place in yeast, in bacteria. In yeast, it will be called as fermentation. During this process, food is partially broken into alcohol in the absence of oxygen. This is alcoholic fermentation. If the end product is lactic acid, this is lactic acid anaerobic respiration and takes place entirely in cytoplasm. What happens is the pyruvate during fermentation, this is fermentation, the end product of glycolysis is pyruvic acid, and then in fermentation an intermediate acetaldehyde is formed which is converted into ethanol. It's like this. This was pyruvic acid. First decarboxylation is occurring. An intermediate acetaldehyde is formed, or what you call it as ethanol. Now this takes hydrogen from NADH and is converted into ethanol, that is ethyl alcohol. So the end product of fermentation is ethanol and carbon dioxide. That's why during fermentation, when we make cakes, when we make bread, we use yeast. That yeast makes the dough rise, because during fermentation carbon dioxide will be released, so that the bread will become fluffy, the cakes will become fluffy. So it is because of fermentation that carbon dioxide is being released and is used commercially. And yeast is also commercially used for making alcohol, which human beings consume. So it is also known as brewer's yeast or baker's yeast. This is anaerobic respiration. Previous was, the end product was ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide, which was fermentation. Now another is that pyruvate can also be converted into lactic acid. For that, this is pyruvic acid. Taking hydrogen from NADH, it will convert into this hydrogen has come, this becomes lactic acid. And for that, whether it is fermentation, whether it is anaerobic respiration simple, total ATP will be 4 and used ATP will be 2. So net ATP produced will be 2. और ये ठीक भी है, शुरू में when earth evolved, the atmosphere was reducing atmosphere, there was no oxygen available. So first came anaerobes, the bacteria which came around 3.5 million years ago. So that bacteria which were found approximately 3.5 billion years ago, 10⁹, they were first anaerobes. And something is better than nothing. So glucose was oxidized in the absence of oxygen to release net 2 ATP. But as we go up, as the earth evolved, the environment became oxygenated as free oxygen was available. So shift was from anaerobe to aerobe. The same molecule of glucose yielded 4 ATP in anaerobic respiration, and same in aerobic respiration. Anaerobic it yielded 4 ATP. In aerobic respiration it yielded 40 ATP. So that's why in and around we see these days we have aerobes, because the same molecule in the presence of oxygen released much more, 10 times more energy. That's why we find aerobes in and around us, but we have anaerobes still living in hot sulfur spring vents, in ocean belts, bacteria living under anaerobic conditions, all parasites, endoparasites living in mammals' body, other bodies, they are anaerobes. This is how the NCERT talks about the fate of glucose. Pyruvate is must. It is a common pathway. If it undergoes fermentation, it will yield ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide, energy. Total 4 ATP will be formed. Used will be 2, net will be 2. If the end product is lactic acid, then also the amount of energy formed is same. If this pyruvate is converted into acetyl coenzyme A, which we will study in higher classes, this enters the mitochondria, where goes on TCA, tricarboxylic acid cycle, or citric acid cycle, or Krebs cycle. Here the total energy released is 40 ATP. It can be 38 to 40 ATP. Net will be 36 to 38 ATP. Aerobic respiration, difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Oxygen required, oxygen not required. Takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria, because in cytoplasm glycolysis will occur. As I said, this is a common step. So glycolysis will yield pyruvate. Then it takes place in cytoplasm only. It is complete oxidation, which will result in formation of carbon dioxide and water. It is incomplete oxidation, which ethyl alcohol or lactic acid will form. Along with ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide will also be formed. It yields 38 ATP. It yields 2 ATP. It is mostly in higher organisms such as mammals have this type of breathing, respiration. This occurs in some bacteria and yeast. Now, the question is, do plants breathe? Yes. Do plants have any respiratory system? No. Now, which is the main phenomena by which they are breathing? That is simple diffusion. And rate of respiration is rapid in actively growing areas like shoot, root tip, floral buds, germinating seeds. Because new cells have to be formed, energy is required for the manufacture of new cells, cell organelles. So that's why the rate of respiration increases. Now, which are the main points from where the plants they breathe? On the surface of leaf, there are present stomata having guard cells. When these guard cells open, then gaseous exchange will occur. and they will help in photosynthesis as well as respiration. In respiration, oxygen will diffuse in and carbon dioxide will diffuse out, and in photosynthesis reverse will occur. And stomata open due to turgor pressure. Now let me little bit tell you that the inner lining of stomata, the cell wall, is highly thickened. So when the turgor pressure, that is pressure inside the cell, increases, they outwardly expand. It's like this. Let's say the stomata were like this. This portion is highly thickened. Due to entry of water, turgor pressure will increase. As a result, the guard cells will bulge out like this. And the thickened wall will be like this. This is how stomata open. So remember, it is the turgor pressure which is responsible for opening of stomata. When they lose the turgidity, the stomata they close. They can also breathe through root surfaces. The root hair cell, which is single cell. So simple, the air trapped inside the soil particles will diffuse in, that is oxygen will diffuse out, carbon dioxide will diffuse out. That's why we say that clay soil which do not trap air is unfit for agriculture. Sandy soil do not allow water to stand, the water percolates through them. It's the silt mixed with loam which not only have water holding capacity but also the air trapping capacity, which is very, very important for the growth of plants. So you can very well see root hairs are in direct contact with air spaces in the soil. Oxygen of the soil diffuses through root and reaches all internal cells of the root for respiration. In waterlogged conditions, the soil air is deficient in oxygen. So that is why, due to the deficiency of oxygen, the roots that many a times come out. This you will study in higher classes. And they will have pores for breathing. These are known as pneumatophores. Older root and stem have structures like this, lens-like structure known as lenticels. They are for gaseous exchange. If we draw the structure of lenticel, it consists of loosely arranged parenchyma cells. These cells are known as complementary cells. And the epidermis breaks. And a hole is left for gaseous exchange. This you will be studying in higher classes, that we have cork cambium or phallogen, which is going to make these lenticels. So they become important breathing parts, especially for woody stems. Now let's see how much we have grasped. Respiratory substrate is glucose, sucrose, ribose, all. Mainly it is glucose. Because sucrose will first have to convert into glucose and fructose if it wants to undergo respiration. So that is why sucrose directly cannot undergo act as respiratory substrate. Respiration is anabolic, catabolic, both, none. Now listen to me carefully. Respiration is catabolic because glucose is broken down. But respiratory pathways are both anabolic and catabolic. But here they are asking what is respiration. So respiration is catabolic. End product of fermentation, we have already said, ethyl alcohol plus carbon dioxide. Aerobic respiration occurs in mitochondria, Golgi bodies, cytoplasm, all. Although part of aerobic respiration, that is glycolysis, occurs in cytoplasm also. But since both the choices are given, both is not given, so right answer will be mitochondria, because it is in mitochondria that NADH, FADH2 and ATP will be produced through oxidative phosphorylation. This is what exactly it is. Breathing in plants occur through lenticels, yes. Stomata, yes. Root surface, yes. So answer will be all.